Hey everyone, and welcome to the Heal with Kat podcast. My name is Kat and I am your host, and welcome to this week's episode where I have my incredible and empowering and powerful guest, Scarlette Joyce Rojas, on the podcast. And now before I get into introducing my guest this week, I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for showing up to the episode and to the channel. This is an ever-growing community of people who are spiritually aware, yet learning how to navigate their human experience. And I think everybody can relate to that. It's not this like new age thought. It's like, here we are, all of us. We are spiritual of some form, and we are coming into our human experience more and more as we grow and evolve and get older. And how do we make it easier? How do we make it better? How do we navigate the certain parts of us that we are living in every single day? And for those of you who are new here and not sure who I am and what I do, my name is Kat, as I mentioned, and I am a family constellations therapy facilitator, which is a mouthful. I get it. But essentially what I help people do is look at the unhealed traumas of their ancestral lineage around really everything and how it created patterns of beliefs, behaviors, actions, and choices that are showing up as blocks in your life today. And this could be with food, money, weight, relationships. It could be really anything that's showing up in your life. You know, I really am of the belief that as humans, we are multiple parts existing in one, and one of those parts of us is ancestral in nature. We are energetic and epigenetic components of the past and who we are today. So I love geeking out about all of that. And that's what we do in family constellations, is just look at all the parts of you that exist, ancestral as well, and try to bring you some liberation, some freedom, more love in your life, more ease, whatever it needs to be. It's definitely psychological and spiritual in nature. And I love balancing both. And I think that's why I was really drawn to Scarlette. I met her on Podmatch, which is this podcast networking platform I joined a few months ago. I've had a lot of success with it so far. I've got amazing episodes coming over the next few weeks into the new year, actually. And Scarlette was all about, here's how you can have a better relationship with money. And it's not about necessarily how you manage it or what you do with it. It's about the subconscious beliefs that are generational in nature that can affect how you feel worthy to money. And she breaks it down in a very simple but powerful way. Your relationship to you, your relationship to the world, and your relationship with money. And we talk about how subconscious beliefs are really intertwined into those three things. Now, this episode is spiritual, but it's also not. It's also kind of like everything that you want to be talking about when it comes to money, in my opinion. And I think that the biggest takeaway I have from this episode for me is that you can pass down generational wealth in terms of financial success, but what you pass down in terms of beliefs is a much bigger asset for generations to come. And that all starts with looking within at your own beliefs with money and how you can shift and navigate that. And so I think that if you're especially a woman who is struggling with your relationship to money, how you feel about money, if you feel a little bit uneasy or hesitant to have a connection with money, or you feel like you could have a better one, this is going to be a very impactful conversation. And of course, I'm a huge fan because there's an ancestral part to it that is really highlighted in it as well. And then we talk about her book that is at the end of the episode. So I think you guys are going to love it. Remember, with everything on the Heal with Kat podcast, we look at the spiritual, we look at the physical, and we look at the psychological. It's a mind, body, spirit perspective on the human experience. And I can't wait for you to listen to this episode. So here is our guest this week, just a quick introduction of who she is, and then we'll jump right in. So guys, this week, meet Scarlette Joyce Rojas, a trailblazer reshaping the finance landscape with her unparalleled mix of financial acumen and behavioral science expertise. Rising from an inner city upbringing as the daughter of immigrants to an MBA graduate and licensed investment advisor, Scarlette infuses her approach to wealth building with a distinctive psychological angle. As the founder of Money Mindset Wealth Management, a prestigious boutique firm in the New York City area, this single mom and dynamic Latina leader is shattering diversity barriers. Scarlett's impactful journey includes pivotal roles at key institutions such as JP Morgan and Citigroup, and today her visionary approach revolutionizes the financial landscape with an innovative understanding of human behavior. Love it. You guys are going to love this. As the best-selling author of 31 Badass Money Mindset Affirmations, Her profound and bold impact extends across social media, boasting 44,000 Instagram followers and over 13 million video views. Scarlette knows her stuff. Scarlett's coaching programs and transformative talks have garnered attention on stages for JP Morgan, LPL Finance, and Invesco, along with being featured in news platforms such as the New York Post, Bankrate, and AOL Finance. Scarlett's mission is to empower individuals to recognize and transform the mental blocks and subconscious beliefs that hinder financial success. She is a finance powerhouse transforming the money game. I will say before we jump into the episode, if there is one thing you are going to feel after this episode, it is empowered, myself included. So with that, guys, welcome to this week's episode. Let's meet Scarlette. Scarlette, welcome to the Heal with Kat podcast. I am so excited for this conversation today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am really excited to just dive in and understand you a little bit more and your story and how you got to where you are today.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. So really, my story is I'm a daughter of immigrant parents. And so one of the things that really just intrigued me about money is what I saw when I was a child. So I watched my dad work two jobs to make ends meet, and it just still felt like we didn't have enough. And so my question in my child head was, what's my dad doing wrong? Right. So, what's he not doing that my friends' dads are doing? And why do they get the trips? And why do they get, the ballet lessons that I wanted and I couldn't have? And that was really what started my world in money is I needed to understand, what can people do to move forward, to really build wealth? And is there things that get in the way? So my journey with money started there.
I always say this, but I love that our families in one way or another end up serving a greater part of our own purpose. Like where we come from feeds into our soulic, spiritual, personal, however you want to look at it, purpose and who we are. Where did your parents immigrate from?
Ecuador.
Okay. So my dad immigrated from Lebanon in the
Nice.
80s to the US. So I was also raised by an immigrant father. And so there's a lot of that. Like there's not enough hustle mentality, working all the time. I also can resonate with a little bit of the working all the time. Like, where are you? I want to spend more time with you. I want to hang out in different ways that aren't related to working all the time. Did you feel that way too? It sounds like you did.
I did. I felt more of a connection to my dad in a way where it's like I felt bad for him. It's I saw him come home dirty, dusty. He was in construction and tired. And it's just like that to me made me feel like, hey, I feel for you. And so I think that that's where I just wanted to understand money more. And so I hopped into money pretty much at an early age and started learning so much. And in the banking industry, I sat with people that would inherit millions, and within 3, 5 years, it was gone, regardless of whether I would tell them exactly what to do and how to handle it. And what I realized is that it doesn't depend on knowledge, right? But it's really important to see what's happening inside in our subconscious beliefs. And we all have this financial thermostat that we have at a certain temperature. And no matter if we make a lot of money, we'll somehow get back to that same temperature because that's what we're wired at since our childhood. And so that's what I help clients with is try to figure that out. Where's your thermostat and how do we raise it?
I love it. I have full body chills when you're talking because I feel like there's so many people who are super successful who
Yeah,
get all of this money and they're like, I still feel insecure. I
100%.
still don't feel good enough. And so
Yes.
I love that you're in this industry that is so fueled and
Mhm.
yet you're bringing this very kind of soft and gentle perspective. It sounds like of, hey, this is cool that you have all of this. And also let's keep it by just the energy you create with your beliefs.
Right, right. And really it's wealth begins in the mind. And you have three belief systems that could keep you from wealth. It's what you think about yourself, what you think about money, and what you think about the world. Those are the belief systems that can either hold you back or propel you
Mm.
forward in making money.
Well, I'm going to bring a little bit of family constellation therapy into that because I kind of want to get into the nitty gritty of something really quick here that you just opened a door to. In my work with family constellation, we mentioned this a little bit before, but I always look at when people come to me and they're like, I can't keep money, or I don't feel good enough to make money, or I can't get promoted, or I'm blocked in money. I look at
Mhm.
the mother wound and I look at our connection to purpose, worthiness, and like many other things with our mothers, because our mothers are our first home, our first safety and security. So if we
Mhm.
don't feel safe in that relationship, many times we won't believe that we're worthy to be successful and have those things. And so when you say that, it makes me think that maybe, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, which is why I bring it up. Maybe the people that create all of this wealth or have all of this wealth, they're still seeing themselves through the lens of their broken relationship with their parents or their mother, rather
Mhm.
than seeing themselves through the lens of, I believe I'm worthy of this. Do you have a connection to that with money and the mother wound? Is that something that's come up for you that you've then noticed with other people?
It's interesting because I think that the connection is with, like I mentioned before, three different things, right? How you see yourself, how you see the world, and then how you see money. Those are the three things. When I look at wounds, I actually see a lot of father wounds. That's a big thing. And so the question really, I think, isn't who's the wound with. The question is, how are you handling that wound? And are you aware of that wound? And that's where the issue lies. The issue lies that most of us don't even know that we're walking around with wounds. And what happens is that we allow other people into our lives, right? So like in a relationship, we're allowing somebody else into our life when we haven't healed that wound, and this person can actually infect that wound even more. And we don't know. Then we blame that person. Okay. It's that person that was, the wrong person in our lives. But we're not healing that wound. And so in money, as well as in relationships, as well as in spirituality, right? We have an issue with telling apart truth and trauma, pulling truth from trauma. We tend to mesh those two together. And so that's what I see a lot of. If there's a trauma in your childhood with money, right? Maybe your parents didn't have enough. Maybe they did have a lot, but they didn't pay attention to you. You put money into that same trauma, but we need to be able to understand what's truth and pull it apart from the trauma. And so we do that with relationships, we do that with God, this whole idea of, oh, let's not mention God. Let's stay away from that. Let's stay away from religion. Let's pull truth and trauma apart. God is not the priest that, messed around. God is not that rabbi that was jerky to you a long time ago. God is not the judgmental people. Let's pull those apart and look at truth and look at trauma separately.
I think you probably just explained what I think is one of the biggest issues in our society today is
Mhm.
there's such a mix up between trauma and truth. And
100%.
I love that you say that. So, can I bring us back a little bit into some of the childhood stuff? What were some of the beliefs that you developed or even inherited growing
Mhm.
up around money?
Mhm. One of them was this idea that you have to work hard to make money, right? You have to work hard to make money. But I look at my dad and he worked really, really hard, but he never grew wealth. So that right there, that belief is wrong, right? Then there was this belief that women are not good with money, that men call the shots, right? And there's a reason for that because they're better with money. That's also not true because I was married and actually I was better with money. And so there's these belief systems that I saw growing up that I had to fight, right? The other one is I'm not good enough to make this amount of money because what happens is is that I was tied to an old definition of myself. I was tied to this definition of this low income kid that grew up in an inner city. And so, why would I deserve wealth? I'm just that low income kid. But that's an old definition of myself. It's not who I am, right? Now in the present and who I am in the future. And so I think that that's also something that holds people back is they hang on to this old definition of who they were.
Well, is it safe to say, I would believe this, but I'm curious if
Mhm.
if you feel that it's safe to say that these beliefs are usually tied to trauma.
Yes, I do think that. I think, and trauma is very interesting because trauma can mean, rape, right? That's a very deep trauma. But for other people, trauma can also mean something a little bit more subtle, like you weren't the favorite, right? And so at first, it's kind of tough to compare those two because it's like, oh, that's really not trauma, but in your child mind, it was considered traumatic.
Yeah, it
So,
threatened the relationship you have with your parents. It threatened
right.
connection and love. Yep.
Yes, you said it. It threatened connection and love. It threatened how you saw yourself, right? And how you felt loved or unloved. And it brings us back to the core principle that every human being wants, and that is to be loved and to be able to love.
I talk a lot about belonging with my work. We all want to feel like we belong to a tribe, to a community, and that trauma blocks us from feeling that. And
Mhm.
many times with family trauma, with clients, I'm looking at money trauma in the family. And a lot of it is not, oh, somebody stole or somebody went to jail or somebody was murdered over money. A lot of times it's like immigrant parents, they didn't make enough to sustain a lifestyle compared to what maybe they saw with their friends growing up. And it's inheriting this belief that I can't get promoted, make a lot of money, invest my money because my family didn't. And if I make that money, it could, and this is subconscious,
Mhm.
potentially threaten my relationship with my family. So I'm going to keep myself in this very comfortable place where my family won't judge me or maybe take advantage of me, or I won't be unsafe with them.
Yes, yes. And you bring up a great point. So the mind, right, the brain, there's a primal piece to it. Okay. So in that primal part to your brain, you want community. We are pack creatures. We're really not the lone wolves. We've, been wired to be in a community. And so when you begin to break out of that subclass system, right? Let's say you grew up in an inner city like I did, and now I'm not part of that inner city group anymore. I'm making more than my siblings, my friends, right? You begin to feel like you're leaving your tribe behind, and then that tribe becomes this pull where it's kind of like the lobsters that are in the boiling pot. They're trying to pull you back. That's what it becomes. But it's not only them pulling you back, it's you pulling you back, because now you begin to get two things: imposter syndrome, right? And you begin to then question yourself and your authenticity, and ask yourself, okay, am I leaving my tribe behind? This is all subconscious stuff. This is not logical stuff that's happening. But that's what happens when it comes to money.
Yeah. I'm really curious to hear more about how your experience in childhood and over the course of your career has helped you kind of shape your approach to helping people with money trauma or these negative money beliefs build wealth. And most importantly, something that we talked about, financial empowerment. Like,
Mhm.
what are the ways that you find challenges with clients and then are able to kind of take them out of that simply with just their beliefs?
I think that some of the challenges that I've found with clients is the belief that they have in themselves. Okay, so really looking into what they feel about themselves, the reality of what they feel about themselves, because what happens is that they will say, "Oh, I'm confident, right? I'm empowered," but then there's that little kid in them that they really haven't tapped into, their inner child, that still feels a certain type of way for being the poor kid in the neighborhood, right? Or for being, ignored by their parents because their parents were too busy working. So that right there, I think, is challenging because a lot of people don't want to go there. So I have to take them there in a staged process, not just like, oh, hey, let's get on a phone call and let's get you there. Some people are open like that, but others aren't. So that, I think, has been challenging, but it's been a beautiful thing. Once they get there, they see so much from their child eyes. It's very healing.
Yeah, and it like kind of brings me back to what I was saying earlier. Like the you mentioned those three things: how we see the world, how we see ourselves, and how we see money. Right?
Right.
It's like sometimes we're seeing ourselves, the world, and money through the lens of our subconscious from our parents. We're
Mm-hmm.
not actually seeing it from the lens of our what I think is a magical human eye through the lens of a child, how we see the
Mm-hmm.
world. And then
Mm-hmm.
being able to go back and heal that can be probably really empowering for people to reconnect to themselves and their truth.
Yes, yes. And then we have to look at the habits, right?
Oh yeah.
So
Tell us
certain
about
things.
that.
Yeah. So I dive deep into what's happening inside of you. I check out what your money story is. I look at patterns of behavior as well. And then that includes habits. So there's certain things that you do that tell me a lot about what your thought process are. So one of them is, for example, I look at it as money personalities. So one of the money personalities is the innocent bystander. A lot of women, tend to go this route where they kind of just ignore their finances. They're like, oh, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. The universe will provide, or God will provide. And it's like, okay, let's stop, right?
Let's come
Let's
back
get
to reality.
yeah, let's get real here. Let's look at the habit. And that habit right there is you running away from actually taking some type of action. And if I look at your money life and you do that in your money life, then chances are you do that in relationships, you do that in your health, you do that in career, you do that pretty much in everything. And so that's what I look at too, is what's your habit look like your financial habits and other habits too tell me a lot.
What are some of the most like maybe top, like you said, the invisible spending or whatever that is that you just said, but what are some other ones that you find that women specifically find themselves in that are disempowering for their relationship with money?
Emotional spending is one of them. The other one is not having hard conversations with their partners, right? So emotional spending is obvious. We tend to want to either create an emotion or appease an emotion when it comes to money. So appeasing an emotion is, I'm hungry, I'm going to buy a sandwich. You're appeasing hunger, right? Create an emotion is, I'm bored, I'm just going to go on Amazon, see what I want, right? So that's creating an emotion. So that's emotional spending. And then the other thing is staying away from hard conversations because it's like, oh, I don't want to, have any arguments. It's like, okay, at some point you're going to have to speak about this. And at some point you're going to have to argue about it. And so then these tough conversations need to be had, whether you're with your partner for 10 years or whether you're just starting to date somebody. It's important to ask these questions because that is going to be one of the foundational value systems in a partner moving forward. And you don't want to find out that you guys don't see eye to eye 3 years down the road, because it's going to be harder than if you found out within the first 3 weeks or 3 months of dating.
Well, isn't it true that there's a statistic that says that one of the top reasons that people get divorced is money?
Exactly. Yes. You know that there's over 50% divorce rate. And one of the top three reasons, and actually I think it's the second reason after infidelity, is money.
Gosh, that's sad. Breaks my heart,
Mhm.
honestly, because
Isn't
you
isn't
all
it?
you have to do is just empower yourself with information. I mean, when I met my boyfriend, I had like an okay relationship with money, and he really is into investing, and he comes from a very like different attitude towards money, and he has empowered me with many things, even with investments. Like, hey, get on ChatGPT, Google, listen to podcasts,
Mhm.
like really empower yourself with research and information. And it sounds like you are that for a lot of women as well.
Yes, yeah. So there's different pieces to it. So there is the knowledge, right? Knowing, and you don't have to know everything, but know your numbers. That's
Yeah.
super important, right? So the knowledge of your numbers, your belief system, dive into your belief systems, your actions. That's another thing, is what actions are you habitually taking every single day? We take actions around money every single day. And then lastly is what energy are you bringing into your money? What is it that you want money for? Right? Everybody's like, "Oh, I want to be a millionaire." Yeah, why? Why? Understand your why behind your goals, especially your financial goals, because that's going to tell you a lot. And understand your value system.
Many times in the spiritual community, there's a lot of this like idea that people who are healers or whatever
Mhm.
shouldn't make money because they're here to help people, right? And I always loved this one woman posted and said, I make money to fuel my business so I can continue to help people. And I was like, I love that. I love that. Like it's not about the money, it's about paying ourselves to feel an exchange of the energy that we give in sessions with people to continue to invest in ourselves and our businesses to keep helping people. It helps you to keep growing your business. I think that was like a really great way for me to have a healthier mindset around money and what I do working in the spiritual space as a healer of family trauma, basically. You
Mhm.
brought up something else, which was also interesting, that's been lingering in my mind, of this idea of manifestation, right? If I sit back and I just do whatever and I just say, God, I'm ready to accept this money, you're just going to somehow manifest it. And what
Mhm.
I love is that it's a reminder that you can get this divine inspiration to do something to make money. And also, you're a human. You have to take grounded action to meet that inspiration where it is, meet the energy, meet God where God is, to then bring it to life. Like
Mhm.
there's a difference in the energy of what's up there and what's down here. And if we want to create something on earth, we have to meet that energy as humans on earth and
Mhm.
not spiritually bypass ourselves by saying, well, I just manifested 3 grand, so it's just going to be in my bank account. It's like, I don't really think that is it.
No, no, it's not. I think people are misinformed with that, and it's what I tell a lot of my spiritual clients, right?
Mhm.
That God can give you the numbers to the winning lottery ticket. Guess what you have to do? You have to get your ass up. You have to go and play the lottery, right? You need to go and fill in those numbers. So taking action is going to be the biggest piece to it, because God's not here to just feed you and you do nothing for it.
Hmm.
So that I think is a very big misinformation in the spiritual world. And also there's that other part where you said a lot of leaders, coaches, spiritual healers, even pastors, like they have this idea that, like, okay, money and spirituality don't go. It's I'm bad if I'm taking money, or I need to use my gifts and give it freely versus charge for it, right? That's not true. That's not even necessarily biblically true. So even if I go to the Bible, I look at King Solomon was one of the richest kings, and he was helped by God to be this rich, right? Reason being is when God asked him, when he wasn't rich at all, God asked him, "What is it that you want?" He said, "Your wisdom and discernment." So he wanted God before he wanted riches, right? So his heart was in the right place. And because he wanted that, he became the wisest and the richest king. So I think that we need to kind of look at this idea that we have that, oh, God doesn't want me to be rich. That's not true. What God wants is for God to be most important in our lives and then money, versus us focusing on money and then our spirit, right? So that's, I think, one thing to remember is just to get rid of that old tradition or old fashioned thinking that spirituality doesn't go with money.
Well, and it just brings up this idea of like true fulfillment,
Hmm.
being fed by God, being fed by the universe, being fed by spiritual energy, whatever you want to call God or that, being fed by that is actually 100 times more fulfilling in our hearts than getting a check for $1 million, which could be nice for a little while, but it
Hmm.
really doesn't add any intrinsic value to our lives and who we are as people, because we don't take that with us when we die. We take who we are, who our soul developed to be over time. That's what goes with us. And I think it brings up an even bigger kind of topic of like, intergenerational wealth isn't just about passing down assets. It's about passing down values and beliefs. And what a gift you can give yourself and other generations is the wisdom and the heart-centered living and that like true fulfillment of what it means to be filled on your own, passing that down to other generations rather than this idea that you could buy whatever car you want and you can live wherever you want.
Right. So legacy is beyond how much you leave to your children, right? That's part of it. That's a nice thing. But it's also part of legacy is the belief systems that you're leaving in your child, and little things, right? What do they see you do? How do they see you act with money? Are you anxious and fearful around money? Because if you are, then you're moving that on to your children as a legacy. If you make them feel that working is more important than them, then that's something that you're leaving as a legacy. If you argue with your partner about money in front of your children, then that's something that you're leaving as a legacy for your children. So we need to be very careful with how we ourselves act around money, feel about money, before we can truly be the best version of ourselves for our children. We need to be able to heal ourselves, right? Because we can't help someone else if we're drowning ourselves. So
So true. I love this. I'm loving this conversation. It's just so wonderful. Hey guys, it's Kat popping in during the episode today to tell you about my free cycle breaker quiz. Do you ever feel stuck in the same family patterns or even feel like the black sheep of your family, and not in a good way? I felt like that my entire life. What if I told you that you could transform that role into something way more powerful, more meaningful, and more magical? With my cycle breaker quiz, I created this to help you understand the childhood coping tools that you are still replaying in your adult life. They're still showing up. And by understanding how you show up with your family in the role that you play, this can be the portal into understanding the patterns of your entire lineage just by looking at you. Whether you're the parentified child, the comedian, the rebel, the hyper independent, or like me, the caregiver, this quiz will give you the insights that you need to reframe any resentment about how your childhood has shaped you. Once you take the quiz, you'll get a short and personalized podcast episode in your email inbox that dives into your archetype, helping you see the strengths that you've gained from growing up in this complex family. I'll even share with you the potential challenges that you may be facing as this archetype, and I'll even share with you a spirit animal to work with along the way, because who doesn't love a good spirit animal? The shift from black sheep to cycle breaker is a powerful one, and I want to support you along the way. Ready to embrace your role? All you have to do is go to catdao.com/cycle breaker to take the quiz. Again, that's catdao.com/cycle breaker to take the quiz. Your transformation from black sheep to cycle breaker starts right now. You mentioned that you look at these beliefs with your clients and then you look at their habits.
mhm.
And then once you establish in your role of what you do, you're like, okay, I get the beliefs you have and now I understand your habits. Where do you go from there? Like, what do you implement in their lives, or how do you coach them through changing that?
So looking at your patterns, awareness is key, right? So you become aware of, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I was trying to heal that inner child in me by buying all these things, right? I didn't know that. Okay, so now that you know, right? Now you're aware of it, now you're cognizant, and next time you go and you're going to shop, you know what you could possibly begin doing because that's a pattern, right? So becoming aware is number one, then instilling the correct type of habits. So I look at what they're doing with their numbers and then put in certain automations. So we're automatically investing this amount into your brokerage account. We're automatically saving over here. We're getting rid of debt. That's another part. It's the habits and the automations and more the strategic stuff, right? And then helping them understand what it is that they want for themselves, why they want it, what they want for their children, and how are we going to be able to create that moving forward with a financial plan. So those are things, all of the things. It's the mindset. There's three pillars to the way I handle my business. It's the investment strategy, the mindset, and the financial plan. Those are the three pieces.
Love it. I think it's like coming at it from every single angle and not giving somebody the opportunity to invest too much energy and time into one part and leave the other parts kind of
Right.
missing. Yeah. So when you're reframing these beliefs, are you using any sort of technique?
Mhm.
Or is it just like talk therapy where you're like talking through and giving suggestions? Or what do you hone in on when you're reframing these beliefs?
Yeah, so I do use a meditative technique. I basically take the person back to certain memories that have basically been the root of issues, right? So if they feel a certain way about themselves, they don't believe in themselves, and I'll take them back to a memory that may have started that pattern. Because what happens is this starts when we're children and it's just fortified through decades. All we're doing is we're just continuously proving to ourselves that old thought system that we had when we're 7, right? So I take them back to that memory and then we start healing that memory. And it just depends on what's happening with the client and what's happening in the memory that I will lead them to where they need to go or where they feel they need to go.
Are you most of your clients female or male, or is it a mix of
Both.
both?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, both. You'd be surprised. Like a lot of women, it's nice because a lot of women are open to this, and men are a little bit, more reserved with their feelings. But there's been a lot of men. There's a lot of men clients that are very open to this, and it's been pretty healing for them. So
I
it's
can
nice because they get that emotional piece, but they also get investment strategy. So it's like check marks to both of those.
That's incredible. I think that that's like the way forward. I feel like our society is waking up to this idea that we're not just checks and balances and we're not spreadsheets and we're not data and we're not statistics. We're just humans who are having these difficult times around emotional experiences or traumas that we've had. And I really admire that you're bringing this into the world because it's so needed. And also, how incredible that you get to hold space for these people who are having really vulnerable conversations with you. Because I know for me, for the few business owners that I've helped with FCT and going through their money story and looking at both sides of the family, there's sometimes a lot of shame and sometimes a lot of embarrassment. And sometimes there's actually a lot of lack of awareness, which
Mhm.
is really interesting. And so navigating that must be interesting for you to kind of dive into. Oh, well, did you look at it from this perspective? Did you know that, shame is a part of your money story? Did you know that? Like, how has that been? I'm so curious when you get like the root of it all.
I love it. I love it. This is like the part of my job and my business that I truly really enjoy, right? I love investment strategy and looking for the right funds and all that good stuff, but this is the part where I think is so meaningful because it does take them back to certain parts of their life that they didn't even think may have been something that triggers them now. We don't realize that during the day, 90% of what we do is unconscious. So we think that we are making logical decisions, but we're really not. We're just living out a pattern. So what you did today is probably exactly almost 80, 90% what you did yesterday because we live in patterns. And so, because of that, we can hold on to something that's been in our pattern since we were 7 or 10 years old and bring it to today, which means that the 7-year-old you is making financial decisions for yourself now. The 7-year-old you is making the decision on who to date today, right? And how to handle relationship issues or handle how to handle business decisions. And so I wouldn't have my 7-year-old make my decisions for me, but we're doing that with ourselves every day without even noticing it.
I had a therapy session yesterday around something I'm working through right now, around like food patterns and like thoughts around like body image and stuff. And she said to me, "I really want to be honest with you, but I don't want to be condescending." And I was like, "No, give me the truth. I need it. I'm here for it." She's like, "The way that you're thinking right now shows me that your emotional evolution has not progressed since 8 years old when you first had this belief." And I was like, "No, but I'm like a full-fledged adult. I have a business. I do all these things." She's like, "No, your emotional intelligence in some capacity is still hindered at 8 years old. And if you want to heal this, you need to continue to feel things like you're 8 years old."
Mhm.
So I just find that so fascinating that we don't realize that we get emotionally stunted or physically stunted in certain ways at these ages of trauma. And then we're adults and we're like, "Why am I still doing this?" Well, you're still 8 years old when you're dealing with money, or you're still 8 years old when you're looking at food.
Yeah. 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 You're
How
still there.
fascinating. Do you like Dr. Gabor Mate? Do you know his work?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do. Uh huh.
I adore him. He's adorable, but also incredibly powerful. But so much of what you're talking about just reminds me of the book, The Myth of Normal, that he wrote. And he's just awesome. Well, you have built such a successful career redefining financial stereotypes and really kind of overcoming not only like diversity barriers with money, but also these subconscious beliefs and kind of shaking up the norm of what people who have money look like.
Hmm.
What was a pivotal moment that helped you kind of step into this space with more confidence? And how do you give that to others, maybe even single mothers, which we were talking about earlier, to build that similar resilience?
Yeah. So a pivotal moment for me was I was a single mom, right? And I lost everything in the 2008 Great Recession. And so I went from just having nothing to building 5 times more than what I had before losing it all. And the biggest thing that helped me is understanding my own power. When you know that no one is coming to save you, there is power that comes out of nowhere, right? So the whole time for me, it was just God and I. That's it. That was my partner for everything, even in my business now, right? So I think that that's a pivotal moment because you realize you stop holding on to other people or expecting from other people and you realize just how much you have in your and during that time I also realized I was here for a purpose. And so then this woe is me victim mentality was able to be shed, and for me to realize, okay, if I have a purpose, I'm going to stop asking why me, right? Oh, why is this happening to me? And start asking God, what is it you want me to do? How do I move forward? So change the question. Stop asking why. Start asking, what is it you want me to do? And so I think that's a pivotal moment for me. And I mean, for me now, if I look back, if I can make it out of not having anything, being the single mom, to being a millionaire, then anybody could.
It is the most empowering thing. I have a very interesting perspective on the victim mentality.
Mhm.
Not everyone agrees with it, but I've learned this in my own life and also with clients. I think we're all a victim of something that shapes our beliefs,
Mhm.
and those beliefs we eventually get to a point where we can either continue to choose to be the victim and make that our entire life, or we can say, "Gosh, I am a victim of this, and I'm going to change my belief systems to shift in a different perspective where I can become more empowered." And so
Mhm.
I love that idea of it's you and God, and you're like, "Okay, I could sit here and make this my victim story,
Yeah.
but I'm going to have my back. I'm going to lean on me. And that power, that inner power, I find a lot of times that when we're looking at people with money trauma, we're looking at abuse of power.
Hmm.
Somebody may have abused the power that they had with money on somebody else to shape their beliefs. So I really think what I hear you saying is like a really large conversation around the victim mentality and how we empower ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm with you on that. All right, when it comes to victim mentality, and it's funny because I remember I caught myself one time where I don't know what was happening, but I remember thinking to myself like, "Oh my gosh, like how can they do this? Don't they know I'm a single mom?" And I caught myself and I'm like, oh my goodness, that is victim mentality. So I had to shed that definition of myself. Like, oh, poor me, I'm a single mom. No, I had to say, oh my gosh, I'm a single mom and I can be empowered and I can make this happen and watch me do it. So you switch it from victim to victor, right? And that's the switch you need because the more that you look for outside factors to blame things on. Right now, it's voting day today. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, if Trump gets in or if Harris gets in, this is going to happen and this is." Okay, stop. The outside factor, you cannot control that. What you can control is your reactions to what happens. And so that's where the empowerment comes, is letting go of your attachments to outside factors and understanding that the control is within you. And if you're a God believer, that's pretty much all you have. It's just you and God. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. At the top of the mountain and in the quicksand, there's only going to be those two people, God and you. So that's what you got to work on.
It's beautiful. It's so, I love it. I have full body chills, nothing to say, just like, yes. This is why I was so excited to talk to you because I just knew there was going to be so much
Thank
like
you.
depth and like, yes, I wanted to know about, what are the things that people can do to help them build generational wealth? And I still want to hear about that. That's my next question.
Mhm.
But before you even like get to that, it sounds like you're saying you just got to get into the subconscious. So,
Mhm.
what are some of the ways that, especially women, because this is a female dominant community, can learn, even if they don't come from money? Like, how can they learn to start doing things in their lives to build wealth for themselves that could potentially become generational?
Yeah, so we'll do exactly the same that I said before, right? One is look at your belief system. Okay, so you figure that out by on my website. There's a money personality quiz. Take the money personality quiz. Know
I'll
what your
link it below.
Yeah, know what it is. So ask yourself, what is my money story? Like, what's the first memory of money that I remember? And how did that impact me? Right? So delve into that. What do I feel around money? That's another question. Is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it this nonchalantness? Like, it's okay. Because behind that, it's okay, there's some type of fear. So just what do you feel? That's the beliefs. What actions are you taking every single day? Start monitoring that. The type of actions you take when you purchase things. Do you wait? Right? Because I'm a big believer of that Amazon cart. I don't just buy, I let it wait and sit for a week. So I only do one purchase a week, if that, because if I was to buy everything that I felt like that's I'd have so many Amazon packages coming. So I just let it sit in my cart. And then when I go back to it a week later, I'm like, oh, you know what? I kind of don't really need that right now. And so then I just take it out. So look at your actions, right? Then the knowledge. That's another piece is know your numbers. Understand, what do you make? What are your expenses, right? What are the necessities? What are things that you actually just want? How much are you being taxed, right? All of these things are just knowledge of your numbers. Those are the things. And then the last thing, like I said, is the energy. What type of energy are you bringing to your money life, right? How do you feel around money? Do you have this nervous energy? Do you have faith? Do you have this energy of like, oh, I feel bad taking money from people because I'm supposed to be a spiritual person? All of that can give you direction on what type of legacy you're going to end up leaving your children, because your children learn from what they see, not from
And
what
if
you
you
tell them.
build, say that again.
Not from what you tell them.
Right. And also too, if you build generational wealth of any kind in that process, what a gift. Like seriously, what a gift.
Exactly, right? And then the last thing I'd say is documentation, making sure that you are ready with your documents, right? So do you have a trust or a will in place? Do you have a power of attorney? Do you have your living will in place? Because all of these things will just cause issues to the next generation if you don't have those things ready. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm always giving these free giveaways. So I have a budget sheet that is really helpful. It's an expense sheet that's really helpful. I have a legacy checklist that's really helpful too. So following me on Instagram, I'm always giving something away.
We'll have all of that linked below and your quiz. I'm going to go take your quiz.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to take it. I have a couple more questions if you're okay on time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure.
You brought up something super interesting earlier, and I really want to understand your thought behind it. This idea that women are a little bit detached from money, or they feel like they're invisible with like how they deal with their money. What do you think that's attributed to? And I guess the obvious thing we could say is like, oh, patriarchy, like men have the, but like, is there something deeper to that that women can take away from this episode? Like, hey, you may feel this way. This is kind of where it comes from. Here's how you can shift the narrative a little bit.
So the patriarchy, I'm not a believer of having this idea of men versus women. I think men
Thank
have
you.
You're welcome. I think men have their own issues that they need to deal with, and the own expectations that society really expects from them that are a little bit overboard. And they deal with their own stuff. So I don't think men have it easier than women. Um, why women, or most women that I come across, have this idea of like, oh, okay, I'm not good with numbers, or I'm not blah blah blah. One, they've seen it, right? They've typically seen their father take care of the finances, right? But for every man that I speak to, right? And let me not exaggerate that number. Almost every man, okay? Almost every man I speak to, they don't want to take care of the finances. They actually want their partner involved. That's what they tell me. They're like, I wish she was more involved. Okay. So it's not that the man doesn't want you to be involved, it's that you are using that as an excuse to not be involved. Right. So I think it's what women have seen in the past, but I also think this is a big one. It is what you have expected, and maybe society has taught you to expect this, to be taken care of. So if we let go of this idea of, okay, I'm just going to look for someone to take care of me, right? You are now giving your power over to an external factor that may or may not happen, versus saying, I am going to take care of myself. And if I find a man that is willing to take care of me and wants to take care of me, hallelujah, great. But I also will empower myself, because that man could be in my life for 10 years and then we get a divorce, or that man could be in my life for 10 years and possibly pass away. And I'm going to have to figure it out on my own anyway. Right. So I think that the best thing to do is to empower ourselves as women, but also be okay with, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, that's okay. But also empower yourself, because you're going to be the one teaching your children how to empower themselves, not only in finances, but also in other areas of their life. Right. And stop this BS of, oh, it's men that have put us here. Stop. Let's move forward.
I completely agree. I think that like There's this idea now that we're shifting out of this like ultra feminism, which isn't like super resonating with a lot of people anymore, at least in the community that I'm in. And it's
Mhm.
like, hey, we're all human and we all have burdens that were put on us for different traditional societal expectations. How you choose to either engage in those or not is your personal choice.
Mhm.
Either way, information never hurts. It's always better to be empowered by information. And also, what a great way to bond. Like, you could make it fun. I feel like get a glass of wine, or if you don't drink, like maybe Saturday morning coffee and tea, go over the finances, and then maybe you find that you like have extra money, you can go on vacation. Like, you
Yeah.
like how it just feel like money needs to be an inclusive conversation for
It's a team.
everybody.
It's
Yeah,
a
for
team.
sure.
Yeah, it's a team activity, right?
Yeah.
And it can definitely be fun. I mean, I find numbers fun. Most people don't,
It's
but
a little
yeah,
intimidating sometimes.
it is. It is intimidating. Yes. But it's really about making it less intimidating, right? It's like if you go to the gym, it's definitely intimidating when you think about, oh my gosh, running for an hour, running for 45 minutes, that seems really intimidating. But if you start at 10 minutes, it's not as intimidating. It's the same thing with finances.
Yeah, I love that. So you published a book. It's
Mhm.
called 31 Badass Money Mindset Affirmations. I feel like everyone needs this. It
Yeah.
suggests that there's a different way to think about finances, and it's about looking at money from that like belief perspective. Tell us about the book, but also which affirmation resonates the most for you that you feel like could be great for anyone who's dealing with generational money issues.
Yeah. So the book pretty much targets two sides of your brain, right? The part where it's the logical piece, and the logical part of your brain always wants to do something, right? So the exercises are there for that part of your brain, which are actually pretty strong exercises to just give you a glimpse of what your finances look like and some of the things you need to fix. And then there's the other part of your brain that's more the subconscious part of your brain, and the affirmations target that. So sometimes it's a little tough because you're saying things that you don't believe. Like there's one of the affirmations that says like I'm a money maverick, right? And then a lot of people are like, I'm not, right? But that's the whole point. The whole point is to challenge your brain to think differently, because what ends up happening in our heads is whatever thought we have consistently, and we typically think the same thoughts every single day. Whatever thoughts we think consistently is creating, it's like a little trail in your brain that gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Think about a forest. If you walk the same trail every day, it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, deeper and deeper. And that's the same thing that happens in our brain. So what the affirmation does is create another little trail in the
Like a
forest.
neural pathway?
Yep, it's a neural pathway,
Yeah.
right? And it's another little trail in your brain that gives you a new thought that's very uncomfortable at the beginning, but the more and more that you say it, the bigger the trail gets, right? The neural pathway gets stronger, and you begin to actually act upon that, because now your brain is like, "Oh my gosh, I am a money maverick and I need to figure this out. So how do I become that?" And you become what you believe you are. So that's how it functions.
Isn't it true that they say like 21 days to form a habit or something? So if you can commit to maybe buying the book and then doing 31 or 21 days of like these affirmations, maybe just seeing how things change.
Yeah, so it's between 21 and about 40. So that's why I was like, all right, 31 days. Let's commit to 31 days. Super fast too. It's on audio too, so then while you're driving to work, it's maybe just a 10-minute listen every day, not even. Sometimes it's even like 3 minutes every day. And you're in your car, so you kind of just you can scream it out, you can say it. Just make it yours. And it's just a fun way to begin to change your brain. My favorite affirmation is everything works in my favor. That has been my favorite. And that's actually been really what took me through a very tough time in my life. And like I said before, I'm a very big God believer. So I would say to myself, everything works in my favor. God is on my side, right? If God is for me, who can be against me? And so that was consistent, because I was going through some really, deep stuff during that time. And that was what I constantly said to myself. And it really, just helped me through so much.
I was posting on my broadcast channel on Instagram a few weeks ago about how when I was traveling, I was up against a really difficult situation with like the something going on with the flights. And I said to myself, my name is Catherine Dow and everything works out for me. My name is Catherine Dow and everything works out for me. And it worked out. And I was like, listen, I don't even care if it's the placebo effect or there is a bigger energy on my side. I feel free from the pain that I was going through, ruminating in my head over this. And there's something to it about just saying it, which is why affirmations work. I mean, Louise Hay was onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She sure was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Scarlett, this conversation has been super empowering, very knowledgeable. I feel like I'm going to go back and listen to this and take notes on some of the things that you said so I could help my clients with their money story too. So I just want to thank you for your energy and your time. And is there anything that you want to leave our community with last before we wrap up the episode?
You know what? I feel like I'm being called to say, we are all here for a purpose, right? We were made on purpose for a purpose. And there's a gift you have, right? You know what that is. You may think you don't know what that is, but you do. And that's the gift that you have been gifted, right, by God to do something with. And so self healing is one step, right? Reliance on God is another step. And then taking that gift and truly stepping into your purpose is that next step. So I sure, pray that everybody that's listening to this can really find their empowerment, find their gift, and help others with it.
Amazing. And we're going to put your Instagram link below in the show notes, along with your quiz and a link to the book so people can just tap and buy it, because I know that this is going to be a super powerful tool for people. So thank you so much for everything on the episode today. And guys, don't forget that if you love today's episode, you can rate, subscribe, and review it and screenshot me on Instagram the review, and I will enter you in to win a free intuitive reading with me. I announce it on the last day of every single month. Take notes on this week's episode. Go back and listen again. I am just so grateful for you, Scarlett. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.